Good morning, folks, and welcome to a very special edition of our morning program. Good to see all of you who are going to be joining us this morning. So glad to have you guys here. We're joining you from a different location this morning, so you are going to forgive us. We have dueling events on this morning, as you guys would not know. We have the sitting of the National Assembly today, and throughout the course of this week, it's budget time. That's the season that we're in. It's budget time. The budget was read last Friday, and all this week we are debating the budget back and forth all of this week. That's what the talk is about, folks. And we got a couple of things happening on parallel tracks as well. So good to have all of you on this morning. We apologize we didn't have a formal broadcast yesterday morning because we were trying to get into the National Assembly on time, like we are this morning. We are in the National Assembly at the moment, and waiting for the session to start. And I wanted to come on and talk with you guys for a little bit, because I know you wouldn't want to admit it, but we got our political junkies out there, and I hope that you guys can hear us. You guys can hear us clearly. We got the political junkies out there. You got to get the fix. Hope that you guys are good. Happy to have all of you here. I see we got Moses Barlow and Yonet Elias and Marlon Lorimer. All you good folks on today. Gloria Fraser, see you on the live this morning. Good to see you there. Andrew Griffith. And so we want to apologize, but we hope that you guys would understand that we are wearing all of these caps. And after a long time, I have on my specs this morning. Sion Gonzalez, good to see you there, Sion, and Cheryl and Gwyneth. All the other folks on with us this morning. Elise Williams, good to see you there. I always hope I'm calling this name correctly. Elise. I always hope I'm calling that name correct. And so much happening, folks. So much happening. Internationally, so much happening regionally. And of course, we are in the budget 2025 season. Dolly Anderson, Dolly, thanks for the thing. Thanks for the things, Dolly. Thanks for the things. Who vex? Dolly, thank you so much. Dolly and others. Thank you guys so very much. Samoa and Bernadette, and it's such a privilege to be on with you folks. And as I said, we're joining you guys, and forgive us for the next 2 weeks. We're going to be in this very ad hoc mode, but trying to bring you the content that you guys look forward to. Nonetheless, we're very happy that you guys are here with us. Forgive us for being a little informal today, but we're happy. We just simply happy to be here with you guys in whatever format that takes. And let me just make sure that we are live where we're supposed to be this morning. But how are you guys doing? Do let us know that. How are you folks doing out there? That's what I really want to know. How are you folks doing? And we really trust that you guys are well. Um, from the very place you all are joining us from, I've had a chance during the course of this week to sit down with a couple of my colleagues, and I want to bring some of that to you. Yesterday, well, right through from Friday, when the budget debates, the budget presentation started, um, right through. Um, no, I'm calling it wrong. I'm saying it wrong. Monday was the reading of the budget. Friday, the budget debates started. You know, when they bring it in this way, we little kerfuffle. So the budget was read last Monday. The budget was read last Monday, and we had the budget debates starting last Friday. So the budget was read on the 20th. The debate started on the 24th. I have to bring up the calendar. And then here we are on the 28th day, the continuation of the budget debates. And we're just happy to have all of you guys here with us. I see Emily says loud and clear, Emily McDonald. I hope I'm calling that right. Forgive me if I'm not. Dexter Benjamin, see you on the live as well. Folks, we're on the sidelines of the sitting of the National Assembly. It's budget season. And yesterday I had the opportunity to listen to my colleague Amanda Walton Desir on several fronts make a presentation. And you all know Amanda's going to bring it. Amanda's not going to be pulling no punches, right? Amanda's going to bring it, and she did not disappoint. I can tell you that. Amanda did not disappoint yesterday, and during the course of yesterday, I had the opportunity to sit down with her and talk about a little bit about her presentation. And we're going to get into some of that in just a little bit. That is some of what I want to bring to you guys this morning, because this is what we have. It is the budget season, budget 2025, and a lot of folks aren't happy. And one of the points that we've been making is when you have such uh, um, uh, a big economy like we have now, biggest GDP, fastest growing economy in the world. Inevitably, when you throw money in the economy like that, some folks can benefit. Some folks can benefit. But what we want to see, in large measure, we want to see more of our Guyanese brothers and sisters benefiting from this largesse. That's what we want to see. More of our Guyanese brothers benefiting. That is precisely what we are not seeing. That is precisely what we're not seeing. Jilly G and Avril, Rishi, Sharon, Glenford, Ernest, and John. That's what we're not seeing at all. And so, for another half hour or so, I'm going to be here with you folks. Another half hour, 45 minutes tops. I'm going to be here with you folks. Glenford, Gordon, good to see you. Rishi, good to see you on the line this morning. Gloria Chester and Jilly G and Naomi Drucker. Good to see all of you folks on the line. Somebody sent me this tie. Who is it? Y'all make sure that your boy looking nice. Somebody sent me this lovely tie here. Bring up the old jacket. You know how it brought up the old jacket. Naomi and is it Takesia? Takesia Scott. Good to see you there. Dorrit and I was an old teacher, old teacher. So some of it comes back to me. So how to pronounce these names. But I don't often get it right. So forgive me if I didn't. As I said, our colleague Manzo Walton Desir spoke yesterday. She spoke about how we got to be so careful when we are navigating the geopolitical sphere, who we invite, who we talk to. Lots of it is very secretive. So let me take you to some of what Amanda said on the floor of the National Assembly yesterday, and then we will get into that discussion I had with Amanda afterwards. So here's some of what she said from the well of the National Assembly, as we see from the floor of the National Assembly, and then we're going to talk to her on the other side. Take a look, folks, and take a listen.
From the rising influence of global superpowers to the realignment of regional alliances, the winds are changing and the stakes are high. We are positioned at a crossroad, Mr. Speaker, where strategic partnerships and economic opportunities collide, but so do the risks of exploitation and manipulation. In this time of geopolitical flux, it is important that we remain vigilant, that we discern the motivations of foreign interests, while we safeguard our sovereignty and ensure that the benefits of our global engagement reaches to every Guyanese citizen. Mr. Speaker, our foreign policy serves as the rudder of our national ship. And just as the rudder is a small yet critical part of the ship, foreign policy, though often understated, is critical to the development of foreign policy and to the development of our nation. Mr. Speaker, it is what shapes our position on the global stage and is what safeguards the future of our people. So, Mr. Speaker, when the Honorable Minister came to this House, the Honorable Foreign Affairs Minister, when he came to this House and said that when the PPPC took office in 2020, and I quote, they did not inherit a foreign policy from the AP and UAFC, we all know, Mr. Speaker, that it is patently untrue. Mr. Speaker, but you know what? They want to draw us into this backward-looking game. But we're not going to be like them and be drawn into the backward-looking game. Mr. Speaker, we will not move backwards. Instead, Mr. Speaker, what we had hoped that the Honorable Minister would come to tell this House is, since they have been in office for the last 53 months, and they're now requesting funding somewhere close to $10 billion, Mr. Speaker, what we expected the honorable member to tell this House is how the proposed PPPC foreign policy has evolved. Mr. Speaker, he has failed in his address to say anything to this House about how their foreign policy has evolved.
Yeah, yeah. So that is some of what Amanda said yesterday, and I can see some of you in the comments saying Amanda bad for days. You know, we said she bad like yours, bad like that. But clearly, not a very thoughtful, thought out budget, and lacking in so many respects for the common man. A lot of people can make money off of it, but it's not the common man. It's more of the same. It's more of the same. How many people could this government argue that they've pulled out of the lower rungs on the economic ladder? No, no, no. It's a maintenance of the status quo, and if anything, is to make more money for the boys. Kim Shane and all the other folks. It's to make more money for the boys, if anything. If anything. I want to take you to that discussion now I had with Amanda quite recently, folks. Take a look and take a listen. We talked through some of those things she would have touched on in a broader discussion yesterday, her broader presentation as she contributed to a budget 2025. Take a look, take a listen. Very privileged to be here with the Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. Amanda, you spoke today, and it was such a critical presentation. Not only were there criticisms, that there were recommendations as well. I want you to talk to us about some of the recommendations that were made, including, not limited to, the 5 priorities that you've outlined before in previous budget presentations, that we are poorer for not having implemented. And I know it's only out of shame, really and truly, because Todd hasn't brought anything to bear his own stamp on foreign policy, because
nothing. There really is nothing.
And then, to boot, is the PPP. They've never been known to be strong on foreign policy. I mean, you've had Rohi as foreign affairs minister, so you don't get away from there. So talk to us about some of the things you laid out today.
Well, like you said, I built on the presentation that I did last year, where I outlined 5 urgent priorities for foreign relations sector. The PPP does not understand how critical foreign relations is to just the development of the country. It really is about how we project this country on the international stage. It is how we define the national interest, so that we know that when we engage with our partners, it's not purely transactional, but it's always with the national interest in mind. That is foreign to them. So what I'd hoped to do last year, and what I did, is set out 5 urgent priorities. Of course, as is usual with them, they take no care, they pay no heed, and so we are now more vulnerable than we ever were before. You have had the complete failure of the Argyle Declaration, and the government is yet to tell us how they're going to clean the mess up from that. Venezuela's aggression continues. You've had them declaring that they're going to elect a governor. You've had them completing a bridge to Coco Island, which is our island.
They did a referendum last year.
They did the referendum last year. And so there's a continued ramping up.
Year before the last. Sorry.
Year before the last, yes. Time flies. Yeah. And so the aggression of Venezuela continues unprecedented. CARICOM is quiet. I've not heard anything from the CARICOM leaders. And we continue to march forward like if nothing is happening, when all the time you have an adversary on your western flank that is simply gaining strength. And then, of course, there are all kinds of geopolitical currents swirling. You've got a change of government in the U.S., a clear change of policy as it relates to oil and their drilling of oil now, which will have a direct impact on oil prices for us. So there's a lot happening geopolitically, and what I had hoped that UTAT would do is to lay out for us a very clear path, so that we understand that they understand what is happening and they have a plan. He couldn't do that. Instead, he was very good at literally jumping out of his seat, screaming whilst I was presenting. He screamed while you were
Yeah.
presenting.
Yeah.
So
Different
apparently he's assumed the role of screamer in chief. I've never seen him that animated, and it's really a shame because we're really at a critical juncture. A guy needs.
Animated, almost vulgar
It was,
as a
it
foreign
was
affairs minister,
almost
especially
vulgar. No,
by that standard.
absolutely. This is supposed to be the country's chief diplomat,
Yeah.
right? And so what you're seeing is just bravado to cover the fact that there's absolutely no plan. So what did we do? We in the opposition continue to make recommendations, Sharon. Since the last two incidents, we were out front saying, look, we've got to mobilize our full diplomatic machinery. We have got to engage in robust public relations internationally. If you look at the international media, you'll see the PPPC buys a lot of advertising space, but to promote Irfan Ali and his pipe dreams that he's selling on the international community. Those monies should be gone into a public relations campaign so that we could win support
And
of the international community.
They
did promise us, but they have not unrolled it as yet. Then we said to them as well, you have to engage the diaspora. We have diaspora all over the world. How are we mobilizing them to be a voice for us wherever they are? So we've given those recommendations. We've recommended a border security commission to specifically look at issues affecting the border. Of course, with Venezuela, with Suriname, but a dedicated body so that we could sit, understand what is happening, and respond appropriately. We proposed the establishment of a Foreign Relations Council just because Guyana's national interest has to supersede politics. We said, look, make this council a bipartisan body. Let's get the best diplomatic minds, the best in academia, and let's have all of them around the table so that when we chart the course for Guyana's foreign policy, it is with the long-term development of the country in mind. Of course, Utah doesn't listen. They have not listened. And so what we saw was the complete failure of the Argyle Declaration. They were duped into signing it.
Yeah.
Now, Ralph Gonzalez is ominously silent.
Yeah.
We have not heard from Mia Motley from Barbados.
Maduro got
on these
cake,
last
he
two.
got rum, he got maybe some gold.
Yes,
to understand piece of property
we
too.
took gifts.
Yeah.
And Maduro continues to march on.
More emboldened.
More emboldened. So there is clearly an absence of direction as it relates to foreign policy. Directly connected to that is the issue of migration. And I sat in the National Assembly and I heard Onaj Waldron, a woman who should know better, parrot the line that because we are raising concerns about the number of migrants in our country, that we're stoking fears of xenophobia. Since when taking care of your people is xenophobic? Since when saying to the government, pay attention to this problem is xenophobic?
But the lady who put her hand on the Bible and lied, she got to pick a struggle because she also said, oh, these people are Guyanese. So
she did say that. She did say that. So they don't have a coherent message on this issue. Meanwhile, migration continues unchecked. Look, Guyana is a land of migrants. We have migrated to countries all over the world. And we are very clear. Migrants must be treated with respect. Their human dignity must be preserved. And we must give them the support they need until such time as they can return to their homeland. If they are to be integrated into the society, it has to be done in a structured manner.
Correct.
It has to be done in a manner that will ensure that our schools, our health sector and systems are not overwhelmed. That we have enough capacity in terms of local governance to manage these numbers, because we estimated there is approximately 88,000 Venezuelans in Guyana at the moment.
And also, Amanda, not anything to do with xenophobia, that we might treat them with a good Guyanese hospitality.
Absolutely.
Because you have Sabak News pointing out what's happening with the Venezuelans at Ruby.
You
know, what's happening with the Venezuelans in Linden, for instance.
Absolutely.
And all of this is after the government, denied vehemently that we have Venezuelans in large numbers.
Yes. Now, what that puts us in danger of is parallel societies developing. And anybody who understands national security understands why that is a dangerous phenomenon. Now, We're not here to stoke fears, but we have to look at the reality of the situation. If you have a nation of 26 million on your western flank, how easy it is for them to lose population into a nation that has less than a million
Yeah.
people. And
Yeah.
so these are not fears that we are stoking. This is the reality. But it is also the reality that the PPPC intends to use these people to secure an electoral advantage. And this is where you see the nature of the PPPC administration. They will do anything to stay in power,
Any means necessary.
including jeopardizing our integrity and our territorial integrity and our sovereignty. So this is why Hewtott couldn't tell us where the migration profile is that IOM had started in collaboration with the government. This is why Ropes and Ben could not tell us what systems are in place to make sure that we know where migrants are in our
This is the
country.
census all over again.
This is why we don't have a census to let us know exactly how many people are here. Because
Yeah.
you remember, the census is a snapshot of the population in a particular
Yeah.
place at a
$2 billion
particular
later,
time.
2 years later.
And so $2 billion later, 2 years later, we do not have a census. And I want Guyanese to understand that this is not about stoking fears. This is really about how do we develop this country in a manner that the Guyanese who were born here, who lived there, who want to come back here, who are second and third generation Guyanese who want to come to build this country, that the advantage is secured for them. You go, we talk about being little Dubai, you go to Dubai. They are very, very particular about how they safeguard the rights of their citizens, and they have no apologies to make for it. The PPP government wants us to operate in a manner that says we must be sorry because we prefer to take care of our citizens in a particular way. And so we have proposed the establishment of a system for registering migrants.
Correct.
That will enable us to track and trace where migrants are.
What?
Listen, you go into any country around the world, when you enter a port, a legal port of entry, you have to declare where you're going. You have to declare your forwarding address. Why is it that the PPPC government believes that Guyana must be a place where anybody could roll up in our country, do whatsoever they want, and they're fine with it? And when you raise alarms about these issues, oh, you're being xenophobic, it is the height of irresponsibility. And sure, they have to be called out.
You're being concerned, period.
That is the concern of the average Guyanese out there.
And then I heard you articulate for a Foreign Relations Council, I think it is.
Yeah, absolutely, because we need, look, Guyana, and particularly during the Forbes Burnham, Rashley Jackson era, all the way down to Mr. Carl Greenidge, we have always had a cadre of very strong diplomats. The 23 years of the PPPC governance has seen that being whittled away into jobs for the boys. You know, we reward you, you do something for us, we reward you with a diplomatic posting. So there is no...
Sage the Rhine.
Can you imagine? Presided over the failure of Guy Suko, and he's rewarded with a post in Brussels. Now they recently appointed Dharam Kumar Siraj as the High Commissioner to India. Now he has been a government MP for years.
Following after the other failure,
Charan Das, who was rewarded with that position. But Dharam Kumar Siraj apparently he likes dogs, so he should be okay. He should fare better than Charan Das.
You also proposed a border security commission. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Because we need to make sure that we are on top of what is happening in our borders. We do not have the military might, so we have to at all time employ the intellectual muscle and the diplomatic tactics that will see us securing an advantage. So we have to bring the best minds together.
And I want to remind Guyanese too, before we wrap up, that this government has benefited from the intellectual muscles of the PNCR in particular. We've had some very, very strong persons,
all through the years,
figures, all through the years, coming out of the PNCR on the foreign front, on the international stage. I think it's the PNCR that produced Mr. Ramphal
Yeah,
and Rashid
Rashid
Jackson, and
Jackson.
we can go
And so
on and on and
we
on. Carl
punched,
Greenwich, I don't want to
yeah,
leave
absolutely.
him out.
We punched far above
As
our
a matter
weight
of fact, they
class.
kept on Carl
Absolutely.
Greenwich.
And
You were too ashamed to appoint him
he
as foreign affairs minister, but they kept
they
him
kept
on
him on
again for
as
that
the agent.
intellectual
And
muscles.
this is where you
Yeah,
see just the dishonesty of the PPPC
yeah,
government, because Todd could stand up in the National
yeah,
Assembly to say, we did not inherit a foreign policy
yeah,
from the
yeah. But you take Van Ness,
government.
you take
You take
you
Carl,
take.
you continue the case of the
Oh
CCJ,
yes,
the embassies that were opened in the Middle
yeah.
East, so they continue to simply lie to the people of Guyana. And like I ended my budget presentation by saying that as Guyanese, we really have the hour of decision upon us. We have to decide, what do we want for this country? Is it that we just want to change the faces? Do we want real change, or do we just want our
Exchange.
turn? Is what I
Yeah,
ask. Because if we want real change, we have to prioritize constitutional reform. We have to prioritize the way we manage the NRF.
yeah,
There is nothing there that is left for the future generations. The
yeah.
PPPC administration is squandering our money. Every dollar we spend, 40 cents is wasted on inefficiencies.
And we see it in the
And
5:30
you
meeting.
see it. The cuss out at
Yeah.
5:30, the biscuit roads. And so there is no plan. And the last point that I want to make is that Guyanese have to understand the PPPC is parading around, oh, but promise kept, from their manifesto.
Let's be very short.
No, but you see, the point is, as well, Sherrod, the first time the oil money hit the budget is in 2021. Prior to that, during our tenure, the government raised revenue from taxes and the non-oil sector. And Guyanese know for a fact that the quality of life for the ordinary Guyanese was probably better. You know who were the people complaining? The oligarchs that we see
Yeah.
engorging themselves
Yeah.
on the money today.
Yeah.
Those are the people that were complaining back then. And some of them now who were complaining back then have turned around to say that under the AP and UFC there was a fairer distribution of the contracts because they find themselves shut out from participating in the largesse that 1% is enjoying.
Yeah.
And so we really have to ask ourselves some hard questions. Do we want this country to prosper, or is it more important that the man in Freedom House or in State House looks like me? What's more we want? You want your children to grow up in a safe, secure country, or do you want to feel that if somebody that is of my race or creed that is in office, then somehow or the other it gives me an advantage, even though I may be suffering?
Yeah.
And these are the hard truths that we don't like to talk about. And these are the hard truths that when we talk about them, the PPPC would brand us as racist. But we're not racist. What we are patriots, and we want to see the development of this country. We want to see a Guyana where it doesn't matter what your race, creed, religion, color is, that you are able to get up in the morning and to lead a life of satisfaction.
Yeah.
And when you go back to a home that you could comfortably afford because the economy is managed in such a way that you're able to lay your head down in peace because you don't have to be afraid of a bandit breaking in your house. You don't have to wonder how you're feeding your children. And that's what we really want for Guyana at the end of the day.
Correct, correct. And, I think all right thinking Guyanese would know that foreign policy fared better on the last administration.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw Pompeo had a state visit, didn't fulfill the promises he made from that state visit, the catfish ban and all of that. Then he came back on a private visit, we don't know. See, a lot of people passing through of high international stature, but you never know why they were visiting.
Because there's no transparency, right?
Secretive foreign policy.
And we have what they want. And this is why I cautioned in my speech that we have to be discerning about the intents of the people that come to us now that we have this wealth, offshore. But we have a government that is very easily seduced with photo ops.
Yeah. But that's why I wanted to say that when you look at it, we were clearer on who we are and where we were with our neighbors. Venezuela was less emboldened. They wouldn't dare do some of the stunts that they've been doing. And they're being fattened too because we're giving them food and We fattening Maduro for his aggression against us. He got lots of gifts and so on from Ali, and then we don't seem to be too clear with the Surinamese where we want to go with them, and the Brazilians who even less clear. So I think one of the things you've said over these years we've been in the National Assembly here is that they've been very transactional, as
very
against
transactional,
a very coherent
as against
policy.
being guided by the overarching national interest and using foreign policy as a tool to support and achieve that national interest.
Yeah. Let's leave it there. We must meet again, Amanza, and talk on some.
Well, we're here for the next 2 weeks, isn't it?
Correct. We'll have some
looking
time.
at the estimates and going through the numbers. Todd wants $10 billion and can't tell the people of Guyana what he will do with it. So we have a lot of work ahead of us.
No time. That was Amanza there. We had to switch our audio, walking us through a series of things there. And I did tell you folks that yesterday as well, I had the opportunity to sit down with the Shadow Minister of Finance. She was responding to some things that were put out there. But before we get to her, Amanza spoke to a lot of issues, foreign policy and geopolitics. She spoke to a failure to develop a coherent foreign policy. She spoke in her presentation in National Assembly. She spoke to migration and border issues, unchecked migration. She spoke to our porous borders and the national security risk that are inherent there. She spoke to the Venezuela and Essequibo controversy. She spoke to our diplomatic representation that we have had under this administration, folks. And in the coming days, coming hours and days, we will give more and more of that to you. But let us turn to Jarita Finance. Jarita spoke in the National Assembly last Friday. She opened for us in the parliamentary opposition. We take some of what she said on the floor of the National Assembly, and then we'll come back on the other side and talk with Jarita about some of what she said in the National Assembly and a particular issue that she is addressing. Take a look, folks, and take a listen. Jarita Finance, Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister for Finance. Take a look.
When I was a child, our budget was $3.4 billion with a poverty rate of 43.2%. Today, despite oil wealth flooding our treasury and a massive budget of $1.382 trillion, our poverty rate is 48%. This is a stark reality of PPP's governance. We're spending over $3 trillion in oil revenues from 2020 to 2024 has left our people poorer than they were before. By the end of 2025, the PPP will have spent $4.7 trillion, over $22 million per household. Yet, walk through any community in Guyana, speak to any family and ask them, are you $22 million better off? The answer echoes through every market, every street, every home, no. Instead, working families struggle harder than ever to survive in a country that paradoxically boasts the highest GDP per capita. Mr. Speaker, this administration has mastered the art of grand announcement and hollow promises. It trumpets billions in spendings while our people queue for basic health care and handouts. It celebrates GDP growth while our children's education crumbles. It boasts of development while our elderly chooses between medicine and food. This is just mismanagement. It is not just mismanagement, rather, Mr. Speaker. This is systematic betrayal of the Guyanese people.
All right, folks. All right. Like I said, that was Director Finance, the Shadow Minister of Finance, touching on some issues there, especially how we should prioritize our people. And that hasn't been happening. Like I said when we started, for you who joined late, when you have a big budget like this, when you have a lot of money to throw around, some people can benefit. It's inevitable. A couple of roads are going to be fixed. The quality of the roads is another situation. A lot of hospitals are going to be built, but the quality of the healthcare going to be another thing for us to discuss. And so that's what we have obtaining currently. Biggest budget ever. You're going to hear that time and time again. But are we getting value for dollar? Let's go to that discussion I had with Dorita yesterday as well. Some of the issues she discussed in her presentation, and a particular issue she's going to address, because Onish Waldron trying to come wrong, treat it funny. Onish trying to come wrong, treat it funny. And we having it. Take a look. I'm super happy to be here with MP Drita Finance. Drita, welcome to a very special broadcast of In the Ring. Great to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here again. Long time, Sharon.
Yeah, too damn long if you ask me. But that being said, I know last week you said a couple of things during your course of presentation. You opened these budget debates with the first person, and the Minister of Tourism, Onish Waldron, seemed to have taken offense to some of what you have said and trying to spin it in a certain way for political mileage. Talk to your audience. What are your thoughts?
Well,
what did you say, and what are her and what are your thoughts?
First thing I want to say is that I spoke for half an hour, and the Minister of Tourism, Waldron, she is referring to one line, you see, because my speech, my half an hour speech that I give, I presented data, facts, and figures to the nation for persons to digest. This is what they did. This is what we did. This is the resources they use. This is the resources we use. And at the end of it, with less, we delivered more. Believe it or not. So with that fact, the splitting hairs, now you have to go look for something to combat so that persons don't focus on the fact that I highlighted and presented a presentation that said with less money in the economy, the coalition was able to deliver more. I spoke about the matriculation rates and the fact that we did not have the money to invest in education, but policy-wise, our policies were so intact that we left in 2019 and matriculation rate was 49%. They came in, spent hundreds of billions of dollars, and delivered a matriculation rate of 26%. I spoke of that. I spoke of the fact that the healthcare system is in shambles, and yet they're budgeting $5 billion to go to private healthcare.
Shambolics.
That's what's going on. So when you hit them with these facts now, they have to comb through it to find something that, and they found this one line and they said, let me distort this line. Because I said, in an economy that the government is boasting about having the highest GDP per capita, simply meaning that when you look at the GDP as against the number of people in the country, we should all be well off. We should all be well off. That's what that's saying. And they're boasting that we have the highest GDP per capita. And then I said, and their bright idea of job creation is to pave the way for the building, not building hotels. Mind you, I said to pave the way for the building of hotels for persons to go and wash sheets and mop the floor. And further, I said, for persons to work in hotels that they cannot afford to stay in. So the minister came out and she's offended because you remember they had to look for something in my speech.
Correct.
So they found this line and they want to distort the facts. Now
they want some political traction because they know too that they're losing very badly. And on that same point, Drita, I've heard Timothy Jonas from ANOG made almost identical argument that again you have, and this is when there was the height of those areas they've allocated for land for hotels along Carifessa Avenue, that the persons who are going to be employed in those hotels could be cleaners, the gynies, could be the bartenders, the cleaners, and so on.
Sharon, it's a fact. And we don't have, and I want to make this because the argument that they're trying to bring is that, I was being disrespectful to persons that are working in those sectors. No,
Correct.
I was being disrespectful to the government that is putting policy measures in place to sustain that sector for persons, for Guyanese to work in the lower class jobs within the sector. I'm disrespectful to any government minister that sits and create a policy that is going to say a Guyanese man, woman, or their children should be growing up in a society in which the government have paved the way for sustainable cleaning. We live in a country that our parents, foreparents, they struggled very badly. There's very, for example, let me give you, but I'm from Barticle. Barticle is a mining community. Persons go out into the mining sector, more so you would say go out into the bush and they go and work and they check for production and they try, and it's a struggle. Other parts of our country depend on other resources. Persons in Region 6, for example, depend heavily when it comes to sugar. That industry suffers, those persons suffer. We have in our hands right now resources that should be utilized to build our nation, to build capacity, to open new industries so that Guyanese would be able to raise their standard of living and live a better life. But now we have a minister coming forward, not a minister, several ministers coming forward and trying to tell people that they respect them. That is why they're trying to sustain the low-paying jobs for them. What type of respect is that? And here we have a minister, Sherrod, that is boasting about sustaining a job for someone that is going to be paying them a minimum wage. We have a minister claiming that her idea of respect for citizens is to make sure that she paved the way for them to be working at a minimum wage for the next century. This is a systematic problem, and persons, we have to have this conversation at some point. Poverty is not something that is going to disappear over time. Poverty is something that needs policy for us to get out of
Coherent, structured policy.
Exactly. We need to understand as a people that poverty perpetuates if government policies allow it to. And if you are telling your people that with all the resources you are going to choose to sustain jobs for them, that is going to make sure that they are left in a situation of poverty, then there is a problem. But there's a bigger conversation to be had, and I believe that conversation is the minister doesn't know what it is to be poor. She doesn't understand poverty. She's never visited the home of someone that is living in absolute poverty. She's never visited the home of someone that survives on 60,000 Guyana dollars a month. That is the minimum wage for the private sector. She hasn't done that. So she's going to go out there and tell people, try to paint an image that you respect these people. If you respect these people, provide opportunities for them that is going to raise their standard of living, for them to have an opportunity to get better for themselves and for their family. So it's not going to work. This argument that they're bringing out is not going to work. Sure, there was a very profound contrast that was made by none other than the minister within the Ministry of Housing, Suzanne Rodriguez. Suzanne Rodriguez went out there and she said, oh, Joretta was being disrespectful to the people working in the industry, as working in the hotels. And then she went on to say, the coalition's idea of job creation was letting persons make guava cheese and guava jam. And I found it funny. That from 2020 to now, you heard the PPP ministers, every single last one of them, from the president right down, went out to the public and said the coalition's idea was for you to make plantain chip, or for you to make guava cheese, or for you to make chicken foot and sell. And these same people have the audacity to stand at the podium in the National Assembly and say, oh, Joretta is being disparaging to the persons that are working in hotels. How can you compare those two job descriptions? And there's a big difference. The big difference is that one gives you independence. One makes you into a small business owner. And they're telling their citizens right now that that's not what we want for you. We're given, for example, 2025 budget, it's 1.382 trillion. How much is going to the Small Business Council and Bureau?
Yeah.
$335 million. That's what's going there.
One of the big differences too is that they're hypocrites.
They are hypocrites, Sheriff. They are hypocrites. I mean, that's the direct quote that you should put out there for that.
Yeah.
You can't condemn persons selling chicken foot, planted chip, making guava cheese,
Yeah.
but then say that, oh, we're going to pave the way for persons to go work in hotels. We have an opportunity as a country that many countries wish they have.
Yeah.
We have countries, neighboring countries, islands that have to sustain themselves when it comes to tourism, and they're heavily dependent on it, and they don't have half of the resources that we have. They don't have the land availability. They don't have the resources when it comes to our gold, our timber, our bauxite, and now oil. They don't have that GDP per capita that we have. So they develop what they have. We have an opportunity, and I'm going to keep stressing this point, to develop any industry that we so choose.
Yeah.
And yes, Sherrod, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to reinforce the main argument that we're making is that all of these folks who work in these various sectors at the various levels are equally important as Guyanese. But what we want to do is to make sure that we have the greatest aspiration for all of our Guyanese, and we don't set the bar low initially. I think that is what the argument is.
What we want to make sure is that Guyanese do not become tenants in our own land.
I said by Mia Motley.
That is what we want to make sure. We want to make sure that resources are not injected into this country and our people are not benefiting from it. And that's the essence of any conversation person should be having right now. Now the minister spoke heavily. She spoke about Bartica today, and I want to respond to that.
That's your hometown.
Because she spoke about Bartica and the hotels in Bartica. You see, the problem she has is that she's looking at it from paper. Oh, Bartica have X amount of hotels. She hasn't gone to Bartica and sat with hotel owners and to have a conversation as to how is business going for you. Now, I can tell her and I can educate her to the fact that in Bartica, many of those hotels, the owners have to go and do the work in the rooms, cleaning the rooms, fixing up everything themselves because the hotels aren't being filled. When it comes to the Bartica hotels being filled and to capacity, it's only seasonally because we have regatta and persons come in there. And I would add that the PPP did absolutely nothing to aid in that sector and to aid the community when it comes to that development. The Golden Beach was not 1 cent of PPP resources was ever put to boost that so as to aid tourism industry. Mm-hmm. It was under the coalition, and persons need to understand this. It was under the coalition without any oil resources that the Golden Beach was done, that boardwalk. So when persons go to regatta now, they're seeing, they have a nice sight.
I thought we didn't do anything.
I was privileged to be a part of the first town council, and we did that project. That was a project that came under us. So when Walrun come now and speak about Bartica and hotels and tourism, I want to know what standpoint is she speaking from. She hasn't done absolutely nothing.
Now, a lot of these ministers are seeing some of these communities for the first time. I saw Suzanne Rodriguez again was in Melanie. They seemed surprised at the nursery school. The playground needed some work. The school needed some extensions. So Priya didn't go there in a long time. Susan didn't go there in a long time. They were surprised to hear that the back dam needed some irrigation. Back dam, the dam needed some work and so on because they haven't gone there in a long time. They were surprised that the school, the health center at Chameri, don't even have Panadol. The roof leaking, trees growing out of the building. They haven't been there in a long time. Quite unfortunate, as against this picture that they're trying to paint, that they're on the ground and they know what's happening and so on. Clearly they do.
Yeah. And shared persons, Guyanese, there was an expectation with oil. There was an expectation that when oil resources started pouring into our country, as a people, we would have been doing better.
Yeah.
But the reality that hit us all right now is with oil resources, all we're seeing is the already wealthy in society getting wealthier.
Yeah.
These ministers that's speaking right now in the National Assembly, that's
Filthy rich.
filthy
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
These ministers have set up companies within
Correct.
companies
In the last
to
4
make
years, they
sure that the
built some of the
money go
biggest
to them.
houses. Yeah, they built some of the biggest houses. They drive the best cars and all of that. You know,
Sherrod.
some of them, a lot of them own apartment buildings and so on. So a lot of them got conflict of interest in the oil and gas sector, right?
But they want you as a people to be satisfied. They
Yeah.
want to make sure that you are at a level that you're always in need of aid from the government. They don't want to empower you as a people. They want to make you a dependent nation, that you always have to go to government to get something, a little handout here, and then you say, oh, thank you, oh, great one. That is what they're looking for. They're trying to break the mentality of Guyana. But we are resilient people.
Correct.
We are a resilient people, and we demand more as a people. I don't want to see my neighbors and the persons living in the township of Bartica having to live on a minimum wage. How dare the government say now that they're going to sustain industry to make sure that you stay on a minimum wage? Talking about minimum wage, 2025 budget did absolutely nothing to increase the minimum wage. It wasn't increased in 2024 either. This is the government that we're talking about.
Yeah, and we know all of the superlatives and the comparisons for the fastest and everything else. But let's leave our discussion there. I'm happy that you have offered some clarity on what Onage is trying to do. She can succeed. Because
Drowning men.
It's Onage, just as a lady that put her hand on the Bible in the National Assembly and lied to this nation.
Yes. You know. But she did say something else, Sherry, before you go. I am not sure if I touched on it a little earlier, but she did say that the average rate for rooms in Guyana, she said that what I highlighted on my Facebook were the more expensive hotels. Well, she basically separated Guyanese from that. She's like, oh, well, y'all don't worry about that. But the average rate for the other hotels is about $25,000 a night. Sharon, this is the same minister that is representing the government that has minimum wage for the private sector out there at $60,000. These persons working in these hotels, the lower paid staff, works for $60,000. So when I said that Guyanese they want you to work in hotels that you cannot afford to stay in, that is what I mean. You cannot stay in a hotel that is $25,000 a night when your wage your salary rather at the end of the month is $60,000. Guyanese deserve better than that. We deserve policies that are going to put the Guyanese people first, and that's going to make sure, I'm going to repeat it again, that we are not tenants in our own land.
Yeah. Well, the minister by that retort seems even more out of touch. You know, I think y'all in 7 would say she's a Bartica. Thank you so much, Jarita. All right, folks, you heard Jarita there, Shadow Minister of Finance, walking us through a lot of issues, and also talking to us about some of the misinformation, some of the propaganda. Onage Waldron, what do we expect? What do we expect from Onage? Folks, I want to thank you for joining us this morning and forgive us. The programs we missed yesterday morning and last evening. It's just we're trying to get ourselves in a position where we can bring to you the information, folks, valid and credible. Great to have all of you on the live this morning. Please and thank you for all of you coming on today. Beatrice and Glenford, Yvonne and Carl is here as well. Good to have all of you on the live today. We're going to bring you guys more of it as things happen at our end. We are going to bring more of it to you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. I got some of my colleagues in the lounge with us this morning. I see Greta McDonald is here. She's going to be presenting today. I see we got my brother from another mother, Vince Roy Jordan, is here. He's going to be presenting today too as well. They're about to start in the National Assembly, folks, and we're going to call it a morning from this end. Thanks for joining us, Edward and Tony and Frank and Samantha, Lester, and all the other folks joining us today. That's our time, folks. We're going to see you guys at the end of the day. See you guys. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe.